When I was 12 or 13, I used to think that youth centres were decayed, run-down buildings for bad youth. For example, bullies and the ones that cause trouble.
When I think of the word youth centre, I think of when I was younger.
Helping and community.
Oh, I think usually of a pretty run-down building that's been patched up and lots of young people around, probably looking a bit bored and thinking that they might be in a better place, really.
I think about youth centres I went to when I was younger. I think about old school halls and table tennis tables and horrible fizzy drinks.
A place where they can go, relax, catch up with their peers, come and see people maybe they've got some difficulties at home, but basically a safe place for them.
Safeguarding, I think of those other things that you don't really appreciate when you are younger. I think about options for positive environments for young people to be in. And youth centres have a different meaning when you're younger to when you're a bit older and you look at them in a different way.
I'm now 19 and currently volunteering at the youth service, which I've been working for over the past 8 months as a youth worker. I've seen what it is and what it is like on the inside, and I've seen the real youth service.
Listening to young people's voices and influencing decision making.
Young people who don't have other places to go in the city.
To provide the youth of Brighton with something constructive to do.
Providing support, information, advice and guidance.
They really are a lifeline for some people. If they were to go, then the impact would be huge.
The reason why I'm doing this documentary is to show what the cuts are doing to the services and to illustrate what the youth centres are like inside. They can be places to go when people have nowhere to go. It is a place for young people to go and socialise with other people their age, to get knowledge on alcohol and drugs misuse and other personal advice.
When I moved to Brighton, I had nothing, no school, had no idea where anything was or anything like that. As soon as I got a youth worker, she pointed out the best directions for me, what would help. Picked out colleges.
The government removed the educational maintenance allowance, EMA. That was a really vital way of being able to support young people to continue education and therefore go on to get, a good job at the end of it.
But often it's about talking to young people about what the outcomes that they want and listening and not judging what they're bringing and keeping as open-minded as possible.
Tuition fees at university, we're now saddling young people with a minimum £27,000 of debt and probably considerably more.
A young person did say to me that I'm more comfortable talking to us because it's more of a relaxed atmosphere. I feel like they can trust us more.
So if you go to a therapy session, sometimes young people find that the silence is difficult or questions that are asked difficult, whereas we're very much on let's talk on your level.
I think the problem is that young people maybe don't feel that they've got people in their lives that they can share these problems with, and that's the problem.
I think most of the time, I think that young people will rather talk to a youth worker instead of a teacher or a parent. Sometimes it's difficult for teenagers to speak to their own parents because it's all very personal then, whereas with youth workers we're there to help people, and all youth workers should be letting young people know that that's what we're there for.
There's been a lot of great moments, but recently there's been young people's feedback saying how much trust they've built up in me.
I guess best moments for me are when a young person says, you're the first person I've told about this to, you're the first person I've been able to speak to, or the first person who's asked me these questions, or I get a thank you letter. So those are moments that stick out.
When I was younger, about 18, 19, we used to have a youth centre back home. I used to have like a disco there, a couple of bibbies, a little bit of dance. It's good. Yeah, it's a good place to chill. It's a good experience, yeah.
I went to a youth centre for the Duke of Edinburgh and everyone there was just helpful and really colourful and just makes you feel welcome.
We provide a service called Anything for the Weekend where young people come in and have one-to-ones. They can come in and get sexual health advice and we can either do a referral.
I know about the Youth Employability Service. I know about Brighton Youth Centre, and then I know also about the Youth Advice Centre, Young People's Centre in Ship Street.
The support we provide for young people is really dependent on the young person or young people themselves, and it's support on any issues that young people bring to us. Often this is around managing difficult behaviours at school or difficult relationships in school. It might be managing home situations where there's family breakdown or conflict in the home. It could be around the relationships with friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners.
We also offer advice and guidance on all different issues that they might be facing, like teenage pregnancy, drugs and alcohol, just normal things as well, like leaving school, going to college and things like that, as well as exams.
It's right for them to be angry, and I think that anger needs to be channeled into really positive things. I think the positive work that's going on in many youth centres is a fantastic model, and I think that if people were voting aged 16, that the political system might just start taking a bit more notice of issues that are of concern to you and are rightly of concern to you.
Okay, when services have been cut previously in different areas that I've worked in, young people have said that they feel they don't have people to go to, they have lost somewhere that they might call home or might be seen as a second home. We've lost services that they rely on.
Well, I'm still fighting really hard to try to ensure that cuts don't happen and that youth centres aren't lost.
For some young people, they may sort of be okay with that and may move to other groups or other things that are happening. But for some young people, those relationships and that support network that youth centres or youth groups or youth workers offer is vital to their being, and that they maybe rely on that interaction weekly to cope with their lives.
I'm certainly putting as much pressure as I can on the council to be trying to make sure that the cuts don't get made.
The removal of youth services across the board would be a really sort of tragic thing, because for those that do use it and do access regularly and have built those relationships and that support network through youth clubs and youth centres and workers and people, it could be a big part of their life that's just taken away.
I think for everything that you give funding to has to have a counterweight somewhere else. So if you give something funding, you'll have to take funding away from somewhere else. I think there's a lot of inequality with regards to money and wealth in the UK and in the world, that I'm sure that there's some money from somewhere that can be reinvested into youth centres and no one would miss it.
I think it would have a massive impact on, and I think it has a massive impact on communities where youth services have been cut. Young people need somewhere to go to, and they need people that are on their side, and I think that's what youth service does, is we are on young people's sides regardless of what they get up to.
If it was cut, I think it wouldn't help at all, because there are a lot of youths that need help with jobs, finding colleges, anything like that. You know, I wouldn't be in this college now if it wasn't for my youth worker.
The way things are going in the modern world with the family breakdown of the family nucleus and that kind of thing, because that's where your support and inspiration as young people come from, needs to be maintained and restored, and there should be actually, I think, more emphasis and more focus on those elements in life, family.
I suppose the reality is, for those that attend youth centres or youth clubs or groups or access youth services regularly, it becomes part of their sort of their daily routine, their weekly routine, part of their life. And I think again it comes back to that concept of relationships, that if a young person's built a relationship with workers or with a team or potentially other young people that access that centre, for that to be removed is then removing the support network that provides for that young person.
I missed out when I was younger, and I don't want other young people to miss out too. So if you're thinking of attending a session, please contact the youth services on the number below.